Hi.
Okay, hi everybody. Good to be here with my friend Christopher, and we're talking about something pretty exciting for you. It's been a while in the making, but it's just about to come out of the traps, a new book, Compatibility Magic.
Yes. I just thought of the moment the idea for the book occurred to me.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. I was walking. It was a sunny day on the Gold Coast in Australia, in Queensland, Australia.
Okay.
And I was just walking along the street, sort of daydreaming a bit. And I was in my head, because I'd been previously working for quite a few years with numbers and numerology and written a book on it and everything, I was just going, these sun signs, these astrological signs people do. I mean, how can there be any, blah, 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 yak, comment, criticise. And then I went, and it was like, bang, this idea came. And I said, look, just talking about sun signs, whether you're a Sagittarius or a Cancer or whatever, on its own, it's terribly generalised and whatever. But it is, bottom line, it really is at the core of who you are. And what's the biggest problem in relationships? And it just went resolving the differences. So I just went, what would happen if you got a Cancer, which you are, and a Sagittarian, which I am? What's the difference? And being someone who works with numbers and maths and that, I said, well, Cancer is the fourth sign. Sagittarius is the ninth. What's the difference? 4 and 5, 9, 5. And it just went bang. And I remember the moment clearly right to this day. It was like, that's a good idea. And I started looking at a few people in my head and I said, that's really useful, because one of the two big issues of our time are, how are we going to receive the support we need to do what we're designed to do? Now, this is where humans are really evolving, right? Opening up to attracting and receiving the support they need. And the other thing is resolving our differences.
Yeah, well, that's been an ongoing issue, hasn't it, for humanity as long as we've been. I mean, from early humans like Cain and Abel, the kids that Adam had.
Right.
Cain killed his brother Abel because he couldn't resolve the differences.
Exactly.
So he just killed him, which is what a lot of people are doing today to try and resolve their differences. Okay, they may not actually kill them, but they call it divorce, or they call it, you're not welcome here anymore, get out, leave, I'm going to sue you, or I'm going to do this, or
you're politically incorrect.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. It's just not helpful.
Yeah, well, I saw it as the fundamental. See, the beauty of the sun signs is it is 70% of our energy when you look at it scientifically in the solar system. And it's 70% of our makeup. So, and it's at the core. So I went, what if you could resolve your core differences and turn them into an asset? And that was like, wow. So that number 4, or that number 5, the difference between a Cancer and a Sagittarius, I said, that describes the core difference. If you can work that one out and turn it into an asset, bingo.
That's the opportunity.
Well, it turns what pushes us apart into what brings us together, which is, as you said, an incredible opportunity.
I know when years ago when I was doing a lot of lectures and seminars on families, and I've done hundreds of hours of them. And one of the things I used to say a lot to people is opposites attract, and then they repel, and then they learn to resolve their differences. I remember saying that years ago, and that was at a time when I didn't have any belief at all in astrology. In fact, it was contrariwise to my religious culture and upbringing, which as I look into the Bible, because I was raised as a very staunch Christian and evangelical, sort of charismatic, full Bible carrying preacher for years, and that sort of stuff was anathema to us. Although, as I look back into the Bible now, I find it so strange, considering that, you know, Jesus's entrance into the world is sort of, you know, noticed by the Magi, the wise men. You know, they usually people refer to the three wise men, but there's no reference in the Bible anywhere at all to there being three wise men.
Oh,
okay, there were not three wise men. There was a whole caravan of wise men, and the reason that people think there were three is because they bought three gifts.
Okay.
Gold,
Right.
frankincense,
Right.
and myrrh.
Right.
Okay, and the frankincense was, you know, highly prized and an expensive perfume. The myrrh was a spice, or the other way around. I can't remember now. Somebody,
I think it's
an I dotting T crossing pedantic person will correct me, I'm sure, but I know what gold is.
Yeah. Gold hasn't lost its value much, has it?
No, well, it's still, it's still valuable today. So there were three gifts, and so people have said there were three wise men, but there weren't. There was a whole caravan of wise men, and they were obviously very notable people because they got an entree to the king in the region that they'd come to at the time, whose name was Herod. And they came to Herod and they said, "Look, where's this King of Kings? Where is he? We've come to worship him and bring gifts to him," because they were sort of like kings themselves. I mean, the Magi were like the elite masters of the etheric metaphysical realm, and these guys were advisors to the elite of society. And so they weren't poor, they were rich. I mean, they traveled a long way and they brought a lot of wealth with them to give to the King of Kings because they saw his star in the east, right? And they came and followed that star. So there's astrology for you.
Well, it's called astronomy in science,
Yeah.
but over history, people took the energy that you were born with as an indicator of the type of personality that you would develop naturally in sync with the environment over time. So It was a useful tool for understanding how you were set up to operate, what you needed, how to get the best out of yourself. It didn't limit you. It actually gave you some structure to work from, not put you in a box. But what's happened is over a long time, people have used it to put people in a box rather than show them what you've got to work with and encourage you how to get, not only encourage you, but guide you how to get the best out of yourself.
Sure. And as I've looked in it, for those of you that, have a Christian heritage like me and might be, perhaps not disposed to considering astrology, really, if you go into the Christian and even the Judaistic, Israel's message, why God had anything to say about it that might have been construed as negative, it was because it was a matter of priorities. So what you can't do is dishonour your inner authority, which is God in you, and say, well, my horoscope says I should be doing this. I need to marry you and you need to give me $1,000. This is fucking bullshit.
Yeah. Look, this is...
Pardon my French.
You mean New Zealand? Look, I came from a scientific background, and I was raised a Christian, very, Catholic.
Yep.
And so I was taught all those sort of beliefs, and I haven't abandoned them in any way. What I've always done is look to where's the best in it and how can I apply it in real life. So the reason I got involved with numbers and astrology and later on human design is because I found them very practical, very useful, especially when used in this gives you more freedom to take responsibility for who you are, not in the thing that, this just explains and puts you in a box. And what I found with relationships is when you identified the bottom line difference, it's not the only difference, it gave you a fundamental place to start from to go, look, we're going to be different. We're going to have totally different approaches to how we do this. How can we turn that into an asset rather than something that pushes us apart? And how can we identify what that asset is? And when you put the numbers together, when you resolve that difference, when you turn the differences into an asset, what's the benefit that both of you experience in the relationship? And so what's the challenge? And what's the beneficial outcome that will motivate you to meet that challenge and expand both of your abilities to be whatever that challenge is? In our case, it's creative.
Number 5.
Number 5, it's about a real creativity and enjoying life. Now, have you and I learned a lot about enjoying life, even though we're really different?
Well, I've got my doubts about you, but I know.
On your terms. Well, and also we've been creative. We've done a lot of creative things. And I've learned so much about enjoying my life from you because you've got a different approach, but then it's more grounded. It's less out there, you know, and I've matured as a person because I've known you. Well, this is the type of thing. When you put the two together, what happens is you get an ability to put the past behind you, not in the sense of rejecting it, but put it in its place, get the benefit out of it, but move into the future. And what I'm doing with not only my science, but also numbers and astrology and human design, and then putting it together in this particular thing, Compatibility Magic, is taking a real issue that's really important in the world. We need to learn to get along with each other. We've now got computers everywhere. We're interacting with different cultures
24/7 communication.
24/7 communication. It doesn't matter where you live, you're going to come across people with different political views, different languages. Where we live, different languages, different culture. We're going to have to learn to turn that into an asset rather than something that will politically or emotionally or in a relationship pull us apart. You know, there's men and women for a start. That's different.
Very fundamental.
Now, how do you turn that into an asset and get the benefit out of it? That's one of the great challenges of our time. So I boiled it. This thing that occurred to me, and this was in the 80s, 1980s, and I've worked with it for decades in consulting, and then I put together some ebooks in the beginning of 2000s, and I did one for each sign relating to all the other signs. And Daryl and I were talking about this a while ago, and Daryl saw, hey, this is a useful product. And I said, well, I've used it in every relationship, every business dealing that I've had to identify what our differences are and at least have a starting point. Because it is, a relationship takes time and relating and learning and making mistakes and forgiving and all the various things that it takes.
And willingness to be something more.
Exactly. And if you can identify what is the bottom line difference that actually makes the difference with us. Because what I've seen over all those decades, if people don't address the bottom line difference, that becomes the bottom line in what separates them. It's what it all boils down to when you step back and forget all the deep, but look at what was the issue that pushed us apart? It was that one. Well, what is the issue that can bring you together, that can help put all the other things in the right perspective so you can come together? And that's what this is about.
Well, it's nice because, you know, I love the name. You asked me what I thought of the name a while ago, and I think it's a very good name because compatibility's fairly obvious, but magic is what's not. It's the illusion. It's what's not obvious.
Right.
Because when it's obvious, it's no longer magic.
Right.
You know, who wants to go to watch a magician, pay $50, sit down for an hour and know how he does every damn trick? I mean, I don't. That's not entertaining.
Right.
So the magic, it's only magic to the audience. It's not magic to the magician. He knows exactly what he's doing. It's all well planned, well rehearsed. He knows exactly what's happening. So it's not magic to him. but it's magic to us. And in our lives, what I've learned, that with relationships, we can have something more, which is the magic. That's the bit we don't know about yet. You fall in love, you find the right partner, and, he, she, whatever is, absolutely wonderful. And then after a while, the curtain comes up and you see some of the reality. But within that reality, there's steps to go further and unearth things that, otherwise, if you walk away from, you'll never unearth.
Well, I tell you, the first magic I ever saw in my life was between my grandfather and my grandmother on my father's side.
Mm-hmm.
They'd had 13 children. They'd been together for 50, 60 years. Right? But when you saw them together, it wasn't like magic. It was just powerful. It was beautiful. It was serene. And even when my grandfather died, my grandmother was one of the most powerful women I ever met. Now, I only got to spend a very small amount of time with her before she passed away, where it was just her and I. But what happened in that 1 minute or so was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. And I won't go into it, but she just asked me whether a situation that my father was very concerned about that I'd got involved with. And, she said, "Is it over?"
Right.
I said, "Yes." And that was it. She said, "Okay." No beliefs, no nothing. It was just, this is the way life is. Don't fight life.
Well, that's right.
Work with it.
So, to finish up on the astrological aspect of this teaching in this book, it's very encouraging. It's very helpful. It's very down to earth. It's very practical.
And it's simple.
And it's very simple. I'm going to read a little paragraph towards the end in the section that's, relative to myself and my partner, who is, not born in the same month as me.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a difference there.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that solar signs, the sun signs as they're called in astrology, indicate they kind of set the mold for you when you come here. So you come on, as I did, on the 15th of July. That sort of sets a mold for me. And as I'm pretty experienced at having kids, and I've got 3 of them, not 13 like your grandma, but 3, and that's quite a lot of experience. And 2 of them are older, young adults now, and one's very young. And what I know about kids is, for the first little while of their life experience, they're all about them. It's just totally all about them. You can't get them to share. In fact, that's mine, and they've got to learn these things. But imagine if they didn't learn, they stay in the mold that they came out in. As my mother said, if you stay in a mold too long, you become moldy. And that's what happens to a lot of people. They're moldy with their set in their way of doing things. And now they're, 30, 40, 60, 80 or 100. And they could have been so much more and had some magic, but they got stuck in a mold. And life, I think is most enjoyable to those who are continually pushing the personal development boundaries and becoming more than they were. I want to be more today than I was last week. And that's my pursuit. Some people say, "Well, you're always reading, Darryl, you're always doing this, you're always doing that." Well, how else am I going to grow if I don't expose myself to fresh information from other people's perspectives? I'm going to get stuck in my own perspective and reinforce them in my experience. And isn't it amazing how my experience shows up to reinforce my beliefs? So if I want to change my experience, maybe I need to change my beliefs so that I can begin to experience more.
Well, here's a perfect example. I was brought up a Catholic, became a trained geologist and geophysicist, learned all the sciences when I was at school and then university. And then I went and did a whole bunch of other things, and I was exposed to numbers, what they call numerology. And rather than close down and say that's rubbish, I just listened to what I was exposed to because someone suggested it. Said, that's useful. How could that be used more effectively? Walked away and in 3 months reinvented the whole field of numerology in a way that was really useful and very, very practical. And one of the outcomes of that was I looked at as a scientist, 70% of the energy and the dynamics in the solar system is coming from the sun.
Of course.
Take the sun out and everything falls
You learn
apart.
that in high school, don't you? That energy all can be traced all the way back to the sun.
So it's worth looking at, well, this is the core issues. There are other issues, but if you get this one right, then everything else will fall into place.
Right.
So I just looked at it and said, okay, that's valuable, but how do you use it practically in the real world? Resolve the differences. Well, what's the bottom line in every relationship? Do you resolve the differences or not? If you do, then you can create a great marriage, a great business, a great friendship. If you can't, you're going to hate each other.
Yeah. Well, look, there's, this technology is being used by many cultures, and I'm just thinking at the moment of the Chinese who've been using this culture, their own unique system of numbers for 5,000 years or something, 3,000 years before Christ. It's been around a long time, and something that's been around that long, you can't just poo-poo it and go, well, that's bullshit. That doesn't work. Well, hang on a minute. People have been using this for time immemorial, since, before Adam was a cowboy, literally.
Look, the real issue is there any practical application of this that's really useful, and how can we put it in a language that's relevant to the people now?
That's right.
Not full of 2,000-year-old jargon or even 200-year-old jargon. How can you apply it in the real world to people's benefits right now? And that's what I found. Look, I developed this idea in the 1980s. I've tested it till now, 2019. That's a long time, over 30 years. I've tested it. I know, I've even run workshops on it. I've consulted with people on it. I've used it in my own relationships. I've seen where my own relationships didn't work and then why, and then ones that did and why. Why? The bottom line was because we got over our differences and turned them into assets. That's the bottom line. If you can get over your differences and turn them into assets, and the way you do that is first understand what you bring to the table that's really good.
And you've got to know what the potential problem is.
Exactly.
A lot of people are running headlong into life from their own perspective alone and not realising, that they're running right into smack bang into problems, and they, rather than go, what's the problem here? They go, you've got a problem.
Okay, there's tons of that, and I was exposed to a ton of it during the 70s and 80s, all these issues and all this. But the one thing I loved about numbers is you say, well, what's the value of numbers? The numbers never lie. They tell you the bottom line, right? So I thought, well, if people are going to deal with this in a meaningful way, the first thing they've got to get a handle on is what's the bottom line? What's the bottom line difference? Therefore, that could create the bottom line problem, but it can also be the thing that energizes the two of you, that brings you together, that becomes an asset, that then releases your full potential as a couple. And this is what this book I've done 12 ebooks on it, but we're actually putting it into one ebook.
That's great.
And that's what I want to do, is get this information out there, because it gives you a solid foundation from which to start. It doesn't answer everything. People have to work on their relationships, but at least you start from the right foundation, the bottom line.
And with tools.
And with an intention to turn this bottom line difference into an asset, not a reason to separate, not a reason to criticise other people for being
or justify yourself at someone else's expense.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to read a little paragraph. It's right in your last page. Can you pull it up on your computer? Yeah. And it's in the section that talks about my own personality in relationship with my partner who's a Scorpio.
Right.
And it's called Understand What Real Compatibility Is. Real compatibility is not a gift. It is earned. However, the means you are given to create compatibility is a gift. It is your differences. Compatibility is the art of creating great relationships with people who are different. You turn your differences into assets. It's not about finding someone just like you. That does not exist. There, I can vouch for that. That person isn't there. And, listen, I've had some relationships where I thought, well, you're nearly perfect, and a couple of years with me and you'll be bang on. You don't change other people. You change yourself, and it's amazing how they change.
I just had a thought that sounds just like, like one of the Christian things. Our differences are a blessing.
Of course.
Really but we tend to use them as something to beat.
As a liability.
As a liability.
Yeah. So it's not about finding someone just like you. They don't exist. The key lies in how you deal with your partner's differences. Differences are the fuel for growth. They're not the problem. You can use them to create new prosperity and a better life together. To get this, you may need to change the way you operate and relate. So Cancer, see this as an opportunity to lay new foundations. You are all about laying the basis for exceptional results. So, that's sort of the conclusion in my particular area. Now, for those of you that are interested in this, Christopher has combined 12 ebooks into one ebook. So you've got your own personal book, and then you've got a book on all the other types, so that when you're relating to other people in your life, at your workplace, your spouse, your children, they're likely not the same energy as you. Your workmates or your employees or your employer, your school teacher, your schoolmates, whatever the case may be, you've got the opportunity to open your toolkit and look at what's going to be useful about building an effective relationship, because the key to life is relationships. Nobody achieves their best. Nobody maximizes their utility in life by doing it all by themselves. You can only maximize your utility in life by receiving the help you need from other people and being the help they need. So, you're not the savior of the world, and neither is anybody else, but together we can save the world. So if we can get together and learn and utilize these tools, I think this is a great asset. So I want to commend this book to you today.
And at least you can enjoy your relationship by finding out where to work that's going to make a difference and make it much more enjoyable, much more fulfilling, much more we're drawn to people to learn certain things, on some level or another. This sort of identifies quite precisely the bottom line of what you're there to learn. So you can go into it and deal with it in a very down-to-earth, practical way.
Yeah.
And for those of you who know a little bit about things like the way we're designed, what's known as human design, you can not only work with your date of birth, but there's a significant date when you're in the womb that really is when your body consolidates. So you can not only use this to relate personality to personality, right, so that your personalities enjoy relating and get the best out of it, but you can also look at it in terms of how your body relates to another person's body.
Yeah.
So you're not only getting along well in terms of communicating and being, working together and stuff like that, but your bodies feel good about it.
Well, you resolve your own inner challenges, don't you? Because there is a lot of self-talk, and if there's self-talk, somebody's talking to somebody in there. And so there's this resolution.
That's the personality, well. But there's this having the bodies get along.
I understand.
In other words, you go, if I create this environment and I understand these differences and then apply them and open up to the other person's difference and get the best out of them, not only can we get along on a personality level, but our bodies can enjoy each other far more.
Of course. Yeah, exactly. Now, this is a little pre-launch promo. Christopher's officially launching the book, and there'll be another video coming out when that happens in about 6 weeks' time in the month of March. But right now, you can pre-order the book and get a massive, massive advantage. The book will be selling for $29.95. And there's also going to be a companion or an audio book you can buy. So you can either buy the ebook or you can buy the audio book, and they're both $29.95 each. Or if you buy them both, you get 50% off the second one. So that's about $45 for the two of them. But right now, you can buy the ebook and the audio book, and it'll be sent to you as soon as it's ready in a month to 2 months' time, about 6 weeks probably. It'll be sent to you, and you can buy them both for $21.95. So that's less than half price of what they're going to be when they come out in March. So where can they order this? They just send you an email or something?
Right at the moment, yeah, just send me an email at CP, that's Christopher Power's initial, CP, at ChristopherJPower.com.
It's pretty easy.
So that's CP at ChristopherJ Power.com. So just email me and we'll we'll organise sending you a PayPal request and whatever, and we'll just take it from there.
Yeah, it's a great deal. So if you want to, and it's an impulse buy. It's not something you got to, go away and think about for a week. I can assure you it'll be very helpful. I've read it myself, and it's good, practical, down to earth stuff. So $21.95, you get the whole thing. So take advantage of it.
No, seriously, I've worked with it for 30 years. I've even done workshops with groups of people on it in the past. And so we've tested it with groups of people. And I thought it was a great idea when I came up with it, but seeing how dynamic and accurate it is and how useful it is to people to apply it over 30 years now.
There's a lot of feedback.
There's a lot of feedback that says this works, this is useful. It's not just I believe in astrology thing. No, this can actually really help you.
Fantastic. Well, it's been great chatting about it, and I'm sure it'll go really, really well.
Look, this is part of my legacy. I've got nothing to prove here, but I've got a lot of people who I can help. I was just thinking when I talked about the body, the idea was crossing my mind how useful this would be in sport, in team working together and competitive sports and stuff like that. But just being with you is a very creative exercise anyway. So,
all right, everyone.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. See you again.
Good seeing you. Bye for now.